So today we're talking about ADHD and rest. This is a great one. So first off, when I say the word rest, what do you think of? Like, what comes up for you when you hear the word rest? And you can type it in the chat or say it out loud.
Having a moment to get your eyes and your ears and your thoughts off of your business, not being this perpetual nervous system overwhelm that I'm sure some people can relate to on that one.
Mm-hmm. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Anybody else? And again, you can type in the chat or say it out loud. A break from the world. Yep, those are all good. And feel free to
Yeah,
type in the
something different that you like to do that doesn't necessarily revolve around business.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. Yeah, well, that's really interesting you said that because like for me, uh, my definition of rest in a sense, and we're going to talk about more, is a pattern interrupt that doesn't spike my cortisol levels. Uh, so it's some kind of pattern interrupt because I think a lot of you guys know I have OCD too, right? And so having that just constant kind of thought patterns is really important to get a break from that as well. And if I just sit and meditate, I don't know if anybody can relate to this. If you just sit and meditate and sit with your thoughts, sometimes I can feel worse after. Like when I've tried meditation, I'm like, this is terrible. And you don't have to have OCD to have that, right? Yeah. So that's important, to just do what works for your brain. And go from there. And I saw a comment like anybody who's joined in, right? If you started coming on these calls, the last month or so, I've been doing these. I think we've had like 64 calls. There's not a certain order for these, and so you don't have to have necessarily a backstory to understand, about it as much. It's different kind of topics that rotate to keep it fresh, right? So yeah, rest can mean a lot of things. For a long time, I know for me and some other agents, there was anxiety around rest because has there anybody tried to rest before and you started to feel guilty and then you remember all these things that you should be doing and you couldn't quiet your mind and then you're just like, I don't know, if I'm gonna do this, or I don't know, rest is it's better to just not rest. I'll keep going and I'll just crash when I crash. So that's something that people can experience too. And this call is going to be really cool. So here's the agenda. I want to talk about why rest matters specifically for you as an ADHD agent. And then just a couple things I've shared a little bit, just little tidbits as we go about stuff I know that works for my brain. Because again, you guys know I'm not the master here. We're all learning together. I hope to be a continual student in here. And it's kind of neat to hear different stuff and what my clients have done, other clients. And then we're going to talk about the main course is the 7 types of rest. So doing the research for this, as I do for every call, there's actually 7 different types of rest, and every single one is really important for us. And then I'm gonna say how to get that rest, and then specifically as an ADHD agent. So again, I move kind of quick, right? We go about 25 minutes of content, and then we have kind of conversation, questions. You can hop off if you just want the content, or we can do a mastermind. We leave that open, right? So I want to start off first, like why rest matters. And this is specifically for entrepreneurs and realtors. So cognitive function, right? Rest and sleep. I think we know that, like our memory, critical thinking, problem solving, decision making. That's for everybody who's an entrepreneur. And with ADHD, we can get decision paralysis, right? We can have brain fog. We can have memory stuff. Like a really good problem solver. So we are stronger in that. If we don't have rest, we're already some of the traits are slightly leaning towards that anyways. We're going to need more rest than someone else. And again, our output, as we talked about, our output's going to be very strong. That's why when we did the small sample survey of the top 100 agents in Keller Williams, over 50% had ADHD. And so by resting, and we'll talk about these 7 types of rest, you're going to be something that's a force to be reckoned with. So the next one is increased creativity. Taking breaks can bring up new ideas and perspectives. And this is something Gary Keller, the CEO of Keller Williams, and I know not everyone in here is on KW. That's just my training experience, right? Gary Keller, CEO of Keller Williams, he takes mandatory 2 weeks off to think. It's really to think, because when you take a break and then you come back, you see things very differently. And so by taking that break, you're going to have more creativity. You're going to be able to think about things differently. You're going to be able to focus on the business versus in it. Next one, reduce stress and burnout. There's a lot of people in burnout right now. 74% of licensed agents have not had a sale right now, right? So chronic stress and just the demanding nature of real estate and always having to be on, we can definitely encounter stress and burnout. And then if you don't, you can have emotion regulation stuff, and that's anybody. And then for us, that's part of ADHD. We can have emotion regulation challenges. And so again, if you're not resting, it's going to be enhance these traits that might not be great. Enhanced productivity will increase with rest. We can work more efficiently, more effectively. We can accomplish more in less time. Well, we kind of take the cake on that, right? If you've ever had a project that you did the night before, right? We're actually really skilled at that. So that's already, we're going to work even more efficient. Better decision making. You ever had decision paralysis? Right? That is a thing that we have, right? Is having decision paralysis. And so by resting, we're going to make better decisions, not get as tired with that. And then physical health benefits. Obviously, that's maintaining our physical health. And just throw it in there. With ADHD, we are more predisposed to autoimmune disorders. So if you did not know that, they have what's called the trifecta. So you have neurodivergence, which is ADHD, autism, Tourette's, dyslexia, all that. And then part of that triangle, we also have, it's more common to have mast cell activation syndrome or a histamine intolerance. So it's like an overactive immune system. So we can actually have, and that's sometimes what an autoimmune disorder is. Your immune system is so strong that it actually starts attacking your body. And it doesn't recognize it. It's an overactive immune system. That's some, not all. But resting, what you're going to do is you're going to give your system a break. You're going to be able to bring that down and not be in this constant mode of stress and cortisol and those things. And if you do have an autoimmune disorder, some of them are inevitable. If you do have one, you're going to need to rest, because that's really important to regulate that and to keep going. If you don't have one and maybe you're predisposed, but it's maybe not going to happen, it's going to decrease your chances of developing an autoimmune disorder. Again, not a scientist or doctor, but I have worked with a specialist who focuses on that trifecta, and that's part of that. It's really interesting. So one thing I want to mention before we go into the 7 types of rest. So with ADHD, we can also be understimulated, right? Our brain could be in this, like we can be overstimulated, right? The bright lights, the person chewing next to us, the textures, everything. We can also be understimulated. If we are understimulated, I'm going to show you a picture, and you've seen this. Some of you may have seen this before. If you're understimulated, you can feel worse. You can feel like almost a little sick. So this is the window of tolerance. And so when you take a break or you rest too much, you can get stuck in what's called hypoarousal. Okay, so this is where you're understimulated. It might seem like a burnout, but you're like, man, I've rested. Why am I still tired? Why can't I do stuff? And so this is essentially like a lack of dopamine in short terms, right? Where you might feel depressed, you might feel lethargic, unmotivated, that kind of stuff. But once you get going, then you're good. So this window of tolerance, this is where we're regulated. This is where we want to be. This is ideal here when we're grounded. Hypoarousal, right, is a lack of dopamine. We're understimulated. And then hyperarousal is above that. That's where too stimulated. We're overstimulated. It's too much dopamine, right? We may have anxiety. We can't slow down. Emotional, just distressed and distraught. Just we can't slow anything down, right? So resting, we don't want to go so into hypoarousal, which if you rest like a non-ADHD person, sometimes that can happen. So resting doesn't mean just sitting there with your thoughts. So I just want to throw that out there because I've landed in hypoarousal a good amount of times. Okay, and then one thing before we go into these different types of rest, really important, get a journal where you can write stuff down. I don't mean you need to journal, you can, but write stuff, all the stuff down when you're starting to rest that you think you forgot or something like that. Write that down so it's not sitting in the back of your mind. And then also like a to-do list, right? So look, if there's any key things that you have to do, let's say you're going to take a break from 12 to 2. Finish the stuff that you have to do so it's not in the back of your mind because you won't be truly resting. And then set a timer. Okay, we have the gift of time blindness, and I say the gift. Sometimes we have trouble being on time or gauging how long things take or how long it's been. Other times we can get lost in our own world. If you've ever had that, we get lost in our own world. We forget what time it is. And it's like, I don't know, you don't even feel like you're on the planet sometimes, and you're just so engulfed in that thing you were doing. You forgot to eat, drink water. That's brilliant, right? That's our Albert Einstein, who is neurodivergent. He experienced that. Walt Disney, right? We can go into our old world. And so we want to give ourselves that opportunity. And then, set a timer, don't look at it, leave it and give yourself that break. And then like once a month, I do what I call a throwaway day. So sometimes, depending on my nervous system, I don't take my stimulant medication because it's going to make me rest. If you have that, you just can't slow down. If you are taking stimulants, they're not necessarily habit forming unless, you're really predisposed to, again, I cannot take them a day or two and I'm fine, right? But it's kind of like if it's a stimulant, it's like not drinking caffeine if you're used to it. So you're going to feel a little bit more tired. So if I can't bring myself down to rest, I will intentionally take like a Saturday or Sunday where I don't take my meds because I'm going to feel more tired because I'm not used to that stimulant, right? So it forces me to rest. And I call it a throwaway day because I'm not going to do anything. And this is like once a month for sure. I may not take my meds if I just haven't been able to slow down. I'm going to be a potato on the couch, most likely. I'm going to watch TV or movies. I'm going to play video games. I'm going to order takeout. What I'm doing is I'm giving myself a complete break from executive function skills, which is executing on tasks, starting things, feeling motivated, gauging time, getting ready for things. I want a complete break, absolutely, of any kind of tasks, any kind of decisions, anything. I need that to give my brain that break, which we're going to talk about in the 7 types of rest. If you have a partner or kids, right, talk to them ahead of time. Once a month, you can totally, most people can do if you arrange it ahead of time. And that's a total reset where, think of that, your brain is this muscle, like that executive function where you're doing all the things, you're executing, you're crushing your goals, you're filling this out, you're calling people. Give your brain like a day where it just floats and it does whatever it wants to do, like maybe you go to a special interest, maybe you go to a movie, maybe you go for a walk. It's like, what do you want to do, brain? And you give that chance, that muscle to just like take a break, so that's it. Okay, so 7 types of rest. These are 7 types of rest. The first one is physical rest. Okay, so physical rest, sleep is going to be part of that. It could also be lying down, relaxing your muscles, gentle movement if you're doing some stretching on the floor, reduces muscle tension, might get your energy levels up. You might do yoga, go for a walk, that kind of stuff, something gentle, a massage. That can be a type of physical rest, right? We want to get the tension out of our bodies. Anybody carry tension in your shoulders like I do? Oh yeah, right. We are more tense, so we want to just soften that tenseness in your body, because when your neck is tense, then you might get headaches. You might, all kinds of stuff. Just can be more tense, and that kind of stuff. And so again, if you have any kind of chronic illness or autoimmune disease, you're really going to want to give yourself physical rest, because if you do have one of those, what is if you push really hard one day, you're down the next day, right? So you're going to be gauging at all times if you have a chronic illness or mental health or some kind of thing that you're going to be gauging all the time. How do you want to spend that energy? Because there's going to be a repercussion. And so scheduling in rest days that you can depend on is going to be really important for you. And then the other thing, you may, if you're taking a physical rest, you may need to keep your mind occupied. So I'm not going to be, that about me. I'm not going to be the one that just lays on the couch and looks out the window and reads a book. My brain is going way too fast for that. So if I don't give myself some kind of mental stimulation while I'm doing that, then my brain's going to go all over the place and I'm going to be tense. It's not going to be a physical rest anyways. Like, it's not going to work. So it's okay to give your mind something to do. Okay, so that's physical rest, and you may need a break from your puppy too. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so Yeah, it's okay to give your mind something to chew on, because if you don't give it something to chew on, it might just chew on itself. That's how I explain it. Okay, so that's number one, physical rest. Number two out of the 7 types of rest is mental rest. Who needs a little? Bring me the puppy. These comments, yeah. Who needs a little bit of mental rest, right? We have 10 times the amount of thoughts of someone without ADHD. 10 times the amount of thoughts. We are constantly processing information. We're making decisions, especially as a real estate agent. We're solving problems. We need to give ourselves a mental rest. And you might feel burned out. And when you truly let yourself rest, you might come back way faster than you realize. You might not need some month hiatus in the Bahamas for a break. It might be literally like half a day of rest and you're actually back to baseline. You don't know, though, until you give yourself that. So that mental rest, again, depends on the person. Meditation might do that for you. That might get you in your head. It might not be good, right? So hobbies, like special interests, can be really helpful for us. Things that let your mind wander, that really, like I was talking about before, like you got to give your brain like that time to just let go and not think about what time it is and not make decisions. A pattern interrupt. If you, because I got a whole collection of stuff, right? I'm on the autism spectrum, and so our thinking can be very rigid, and like it's, if you have both ADHD and autism, the ADHD part wants newness all the time, right? And then the autistic part wants sameness all the time, and they kind of battle. And so what can happen is, and again, there's a lot of overlap with these, and so you might experience this as just an ADHDer as well. But having a pattern interrupt, because our brains can kind of get in this cycle that just runs the same like narrative or audio over and over again. And so getting some type of pattern interrupt to get you out of it where you don't think can be really helpful. And if you can't get out of your head and you can't think your way out of it, getting into your body is really helpful, whether it's sports, going for a walk, getting out in nature, which we'll talk about a little bit. All of those things are helpful. The other thing, I worked with this meditation specialist, actually, who's an acupuncturist and naturopath. And she's the same one, actually, who we're talking about, that trifecta of neurodivergence, of having autoimmune diseases, hypermobility like POTS or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, where you have hypermobility. There's scientific research about how our whole infrastructure is different, and why environmental stimulus can be more jarring for us than non-neurodivergent people, right? So I worked with the specialist, and what we found was that video games can actually be meditative, because meditative is you're focusing on one thing, right? You're being super present with that one thing. And if you've played video games before, there's beautiful music, there's story. You can play role-playing games. I'm nerding out right now, right? But it was so freeing to meet with this specialist of meditation who wrote this acupuncture journal for the UK and all this stuff, and was like, oh, I think video games are your meditation, after years and years of trying it. And just feeling worse after the typical meditation. So I'm telling you this because I want you to know how important it is to listen to your brain. So if you're trying a type of rest and it doesn't feel good, even if other people do it, then try a different way, because who knows, right? You just have to be really present with whatever that is. And that could be a form of meditation itself. I mean, it could be just sitting there staring at your puppy and loving them, right? When they're not crying or peeing on things. Or it could be just sitting with your kids, or it could be sitting out in nature. It could be looking at a fish tank. I mean, it could be watching a candle or a bonfire. Those can all be meditation. It doesn't have to be this Zen thing, on a meditation pillow. So any kind of mental rest, a break from decisions, that kind of stuff can be really helpful. Okay, number 3, emotional rest. This is an interesting one. So emotional rest means allowing yourself to feel and express your emotions in a healthy way. So being honest about your feelings. Now, as an ADHD or neurodivergent, a lot of times it's much easier to mask our feelings or to just numb them out altogether. We take in more stimulus than other people. We can be more intuitive. We can be more sensitive. We can be more emotional. Also, there's something called alexithymia. And so this is something that's common on the autism side, and it can be on the ADHD side. and it's having trouble identifying feelings. Having trouble identifying feelings, alexithymia, or even feeling them or knowing what they are. And so I want to show you, this is the, I believe it's called the wheel of feelings. And this is something I actually use and other clients of mine have used. So I'll show you this, and this will be in the notes. So this is a helpful way to actually define what you're feeling. So you have these categories here like disgusted, angry, fearful, bad, surprised, happy, sad, and then they go deeper. And then they go one layer too. And so you can actually look in general. Did I just feel bad? Right? Am I stressed? You know, am I fearful? Am I sad? Am I happy? And this just kind of feels overwhelming. You know, so this is a really cool thing to identify where you're feeling, because once you name it, a lot of times that's all it needs. It kind of loses its like power or control over you. And so if you don't typically feel your feelings, or you don't typically know what they are, feel free to use a tool, something like this, to identify what those are, because that is draining itself to not understand your feelings and to like kind of numb out. That kind of sucks, right? So identifying your feelings, sitting with them, especially when we're going, we're always distracted, or we're seeking stimulation. Slowing down and being still and sitting with our feelings can be really important to move forward. And, you know, it can also be a lot. It just depends on how that shows up for you. So it's really important to do, though, to move forward. Number 4 is sensory rest. So again, we take in a lot more stimulus than the non-ADHD agent. We take in bright lights, we take in loud noises, there's screens everywhere, right? There's people talking if you work in an office and you're making calls, and the walls are very thin. If you are neurodivergent and you have kids, there's a 50% chance your kids have ADHD or some type of neurodivergence, and they might want stimming. They might want to listen to the same thing over and over again, the same song. They might tap, you know, the same thing. They might, mom, dad, right? So they're stimming to stimulate their brain, and you might need a break from that. So getting a sensory rest is important. You can get noise canceling headphones. You can turn off the lights. You can get, you know, like they have foam things you can put on the wall to make it more soundproof. Giving yourself a sensory rest is really important. And then also, we do take in more stimulus than a non-ADHD agent because we're more sensitive to it, which means we actually can enjoy stimulus and feel it more than other people. So what you'll see, there's another side of the coin to a lot of these things. So it's actually a gift too, because we're going to listen to music and feel it really, really deeply. We can do that. We're going to pick up on art and, oh, it's just beautiful. A hot bath might feel like this big warm hug that's amazing. This hot tea, you know, smelling essential oils, playing with fidget toys. So the flip side to being more sensitive to stimulus and sensory is that we're just more sensitive. The volume's turned up so we can feel it more deeply. And that's a beautiful thing. That's beautiful. Number 5 is creative rest. So again, this is kind of that letting yourself get lost in time and just not even, you know, I love not even knowing what time it is. Sometimes that's a really nice break to give yourself if you can, even if it's 4 hours and you set a timer and you know it's going to go off. Maybe you set 2 so you can really let go. But creative rest is going to help you just really appreciate things, and it's going to increase your inspiration. If you're having trouble getting motivated or inspired, you may need some creative rest, which is going to bring up new ideas. It's going to bring you joy. And so creative rest you can do art, you can be in nature, you can just listen to music, you can just start journaling or drawing or writing or coloring. You can do a coloring book, like anything that kind of gets you in that part of your brain, the other side of your brain that's maybe not quite as logical. That's really nice to be able to do. Number 6, social rest. Social rest. So we have some people that get a lot of energy, that are really extroverted, get a lot of energy from people. And then we have some people that their energy gets drained by people. Or you can be both at different times. So giving yourself social rest is really important, especially if you're an agent, right? And you're calling and you're in cars with people and you're on appointments. So it might be that you have a few key people that are kind of neutral or give you energy that you spend time with. And then the rest you take a break or take some boundaries from. Or maybe you need to step away from all people. Maybe you need to just be in a space where it's just you and you can control the stimulus and what's going on, and really kind of ground yourself that way. Also, unmasking. Okay, so masking is when you are acting in a different way than you necessarily want to kind of hide some of your symptoms. So an example of that, and this is why you need a social rest, is have you ever been at a table for like Thanksgiving with family or friends, and you're done eating and you're just sitting there listening to people eat, maybe, and they're talking about stuff and it's not that exciting, and you want to get up and it's like, are we done? Like, when, you know what I mean? And you want to get up, you're bored, or you need to get moving, like those kinds of things, right? That's masking. You're masking your symptoms because you're going to sit there and you're going to let this kind of inner turmoil, because you don't want to be rude, right? It's Thanksgiving. You're not going to be the one person to get up and say, wow, you guys are boring, I'm done. You're going to wait till people eat, right? So that's so you're masking, which is fine. You might choose to do that in that scenario. Or it might be that you have a friend that you're talking to, or a client, and they're having a hard time and you're listening and you really want to be present, but and just kind of let them talk, but you're done, but you still stay there and you listen and you be a good friend, right? These are all masking, which does take willpower. It does. And so by giving yourself a break from social situations where you're not masking, or maybe you're not asking all these questions, or you're not jumping from topic to topic, you're trying to slow down. It's all of these ways are you're adjusting your natural behavior to come across differently on the outside, to not get socially reprimanded or not hurt someone's feelings, or to appear normal or whatever, right? So you want to give yourself a break from masking, because that can be really tiring. And then number 7, this is our last type of rest. This is spiritual rest. So this is finding meaning and purpose, like beyond just the day-to-day. And this could look like, depending on if you have faith that you practice, if you have a spiritual practice, if you just like to connect with people, if you just like to volunteer, right? Maybe it's not spiritual or faith-based for you. Maybe you're volunteering, or maybe you just go out in nature, and you're present in nature. That is another type of rest that could be considered spiritual rest, is just being in nature, being present, being with your loved ones, whatever kind of gets you in your heart and makes you feel connected to that. That's what that is. So those are the 7 types of rest. So I'm going to repeat those again: physical rest, mental rest, emotional rest, sensory rest, creative rest, social rest, and spiritual rest. All 7 of these are really important, and it may depend on where you are, which one you need, right? So it doesn't mean you need to do the exact same amount of rest every week. It's just being intentional of, okay, I'm not feeling great right now. Which type of rest do I need? Do I need social rest? No, I'm actually good on that. Oh, you know what? I need sensory rest. I'm too overstimulated. Or everything's, it's been kind of stressful, but I've been maintaining. I don't need physical rest. I need emotional rest. I need to actually feel my feelings and not just be in survival mode and like sit with them for a second, So knowing these types of rest is going to be really important for you, as you maintain your emotions and everything you're doing. So that is the content I had for today. That is rest. So again, rest is not sitting there reading a book. Rest can be organizing the room if that seems fun for you, or cleaning the house, or going and watching a movie. There's just so many things that if it's fun and it's enjoyable, it's pouring into you, then it could be considered rest. That's all right. Well, have a great day. Really care about you guys. It's just the most fun job ever. So have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you next time, and see you in the Facebook group. All right. Bye, everybody.